Have you ever stood in a room full of people you once called family and realized you weren't in the picture anymore? Not forgotten excluded. What would you do if the woman you built your life around invited someone else into your place and smiled like nothing was wrong? This isn't a story about screaming or breaking plates. It's about a man who stayed quiet until silence became his sharpest weapon. About the betrayal that didn't shout, but whispered its way into everything. And what happens when the one left behind finally walks away. This is Daniel's story. And once you hear it, you won't forget where you were standing either. I remember the way the sun hit the vineyard that afternoon, soft, golden, expensive. The kind of light that makes everything look like a magazine ad, even if what's happening underneath is rotting. It was Haley's engagement party, Marissa's younger sister, hosted at a winery just outside Napa, the kind with glass walls and rustic lanterns and people who use words like notes of blackberry, unironically. I wore my best navy suit, the one Marissa helped me pick for a work gala years ago. I'd shaved, polished my shoes, even ironed my pockets square. I showed up like someone who was supposed to be there. But apparently, I wasn't. The family photographer was gathering everyone near the terrace. The lineup was forming: Marissa beside Haley, their mom and aunt clinking glasses, cousins filing in with airy dresses and practiced smiles. I started walking toward them when I heard it. "Hey, Daniel, could you just hold off for 1 second?" It was Rachel, Marissa's cousin, the unofficial coordinator of all things image-related. She was wearing that tight-lipped, professional smile people reserve for waiters who forget the side dish. I paused. "Hold off for what?" "Just while we get one of the tighter shots," she said, waving vaguely toward the group, the immediate circle. I looked past her. Marissa was laughing, a hand on someone's arm. That someone was Logan. He was standing exactly where I would have, next to her, front and center. I didn't recognize him at first. Just a tall guy in a well-fitted cream suit, drink in hand, hair sculpted like he paid extra for precision. But he was in the photo, with my wife, and no one thought that was strange. He wasn't family. He wasn't even Haley's friend, just Marissa's guest. I stood by the edge of the crowd. A few seconds passed, then a few more. That kind of time that stretches, embarrasses you quietly. You realize no one's going to call you back in, that you're not part of the picture. So I turned, walked past the pergola, past the champagne flutes, and over to the table with the gifts. Our envelope was there, thick, hand-sealed, with "Congratulations, Haley and Max" written in Marissa's handwriting. I picked it up, slipped it into my jacket. A few people saw. I didn't care. Let them wonder. Then I said, just loud enough for Rachel to hear, "Don't worry, I'll stay out of the picture." She froze. So did a few others. But I kept walking. No yelling, no scene. Just calm steps across polished stone and out to the parking lot, where the October breeze didn't try to lie. Marissa called after me once. Then again, "Daniel, wait." But I didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like obeying anymore. The drive back to Seattle felt longer than usual, even though it wasn't. I didn't play any music. Just the steady hum of tires against asphalt, the occasional whoosh of a passing car, and the kind of silence that fills your chest like water when you don't know you're drowning. I thought about the vineyard, about how Marissa looked standing beside Logan, how her laughter hit a pitch I hadn't heard in months. Not the soft laugh she used to share over dinner, or the tired one after a long day, but a louder, shinier version, manufactured joy. Like a performance she'd been rehearsing, and I'd missed the casting call. It's strange what memory chooses to keep, not the obvious betrayal, not the sting of being replaced in real time. No, what stayed with me was the way she didn't look for me in the crowd. Not once. We'd been married 7 years, long enough to build a rhythm, a shorthand. I used to be the person she scanned for in every room, the one she'd catch eyes with across the chaos. Not anymore. It hadn't happened all at once. There wasn't one big fight. No slammed doors or dramatic ultimatums, just the gradual erosion, plans canceled with short texts, conversations that ended before they started. Nights where she came home smelling like perfume I didn't recognize, too floral, too bold. The kind she used to say gave her headaches. I'd cook dinner. She'd say she ate already. I'd ask how her day went. She'd say, fine, and scroll. I thought maybe I was being too sensitive, maybe work stress, maybe family drama, but the distance wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. She wasn't just far, she was gone. And yet, I stayed, because that's what I do. I stay. I remember one night in particular. It was a Tuesday. I'd made lemon rosemary chicken, her favorite. Set the table, poured the wine. She texted me at 6:47. Running late. Don't wait. She came home at nearly 10. Said she'd had a planning session with her sister. I believed her. I wanted to. She kissed my cheek, and I almost leaned into it, like muscle memory, but it felt wrong, cold, like someone else's lips had already worn out the warmth. Still, I cleaned the dishes, put the leftovers away, crawled into bed beside her like I hadn't just been ghosted in my own marriage. That was the pattern, me showing up, her showing off, but never showing up for me. She used to say I was the solid one, the calm in her storm, the man who could carry weight without complaining. I wore that like a badge, until I realized it was just a leash. People always talk about falling out of love like it's mutual, like it's some natural mutual fade, but sometimes one person lets go while the other is still reaching. I was still reaching. Until that day in Napa. Until I stood beside a wine barrel, watching my wife smile beside a man with movie star teeth and a custom watch. While I got told to stand out of frame like some distant cousin who didn't RSVP on time, that was when something broke, not just between us, but inside me. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was something quieter. Like a string snapping on a guitar, just enough to ruin the music. So I drove. Past the California hills. Past the line where vineyards turned to freeway. Back to our shared apartment with its coordinated throw pillows and curated art pieces she picked when she still included me in decisions. I walked into our place, set down my keys, and stood in the kitchen for a while. That chicken recipe? I never made it again. I didn't sleep the night I got back. Not really. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows crawl across the plaster as cars passed by outside. Marissa was asleep beside me, breathing steady like nothing was wrong. Her phone was face down on the nightstand, always face down. Around 3 a.m., I got up. I padded into the kitchen barefoot, poured a glass of water, and stood there for a long time, staring out the window. Our apartment looked the same. Nothing was out of place. But everything felt out of place, like walking into a stage set after the actors had gone home. That's when I decided. I didn't want accusations, I wanted answers. So I went back to the bedroom and picked up our shared laptop, the one we mostly used for groceries, vacation bookings, and the occasional Netflix login when the television app acted up. The login screen blinked at me. I typed her password, Jared 2006, the name of her high school crush. She used to joke about it. I used to laugh. It didn't feel funny now. The desktop was neat, too neat. A few folders. Work stuff, receipts, photos. No clutter, no randomness. Nothing raw. I opened photos. Vacations, birthdays, random brunches, with captions like My Forever Crew. But then I found a subfolder labeled Events. Inside were more images, mostly boring ones. Corporate events, dinners, a few selfies at wine bars. Then I found one labeled with just a date, 09-22, 2 weeks before Haley's engagement party. It was a mirror selfie. Marissa in a hotel robe, hair damp, towel on her head. Behind her, in the reflection, was the corner of a man's shoulder tan, muscular, Unmistakably not mine. The robe had a Ritz-Carlton logo. My heart didn't drop. It paused like it needed a moment to recalibrate the person I'd married with the person in that image. I clicked back. Opened the Messages app. Empty. No drafts. No deleted messages. No recent conversations. She'd been sweeping. But people always forget the corners. So I checked iCloud. She hadn't signed out. Her iMessages synced. And just like that, the truth spilled into my screen like floodwater through a crack in the dam. Logan P. Tell your husband the meeting ran long again. Left my watch in your bag. Grab it next time. You looked incredible tonight. Wish I was the one unzipping that dress. The timestamps matched the night she said she was at yoga. I clicked through the thread. Dozens of messages. No hesitation. No fear. No remorse. I didn't get angry, not yet. Instead, I started documenting. I opened a new folder on the desktop. Title, Evidence, Folder, A. I took screenshots of every text. Saved the mirror photo. Downloaded the receipts from our joint account room service at the Ritz. Uber rides from event locations that didn't exist. Charges from boutique hotels in San Diego where Logan happened to live. I found a receipt for a dinner at a rooftop restaurant. The same night I was home, cooking steak and roasted carrots. She came home late that night too, smelled like lavender and guilt. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the casualness of it, the comfort. They didn't hide, not really, because they didn't believe I was looking. Marissa thought I'd just keep existing in the background working, paying bills, making polite conversation over takeout. She mistook quiet for cluelessness, patience for permission. She forgot I was watching. I remember walking back into the bedroom and seeing her there, still asleep. Her face soft, peaceful, like she deserved to rest. I stood there for a long time, holding the weight of what I now knew. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drunken one-night thing or some emotional moment gone too far. It was sustained, rehearsed, repeated. The kind of betrayal that carves itself into your calendar. I sat down at the edge of the bed and whispered, "Okay," not to her, to myself, because now I had what I needed, not to confront, to decide. The next morning, I didn't speak. Marissa was already in the kitchen when I woke up. She poured coffee, humming something low, tuneless. When she saw me, she smiled too fast, too bright. "You want eggs?" she asked, like it was any other Tuesday. I shook my head. Not hungry. She didn't ask why. And that's when I realized she stopped asking about me a long time ago. I sat at the table with a glass of water, pretending to scroll emails while she packed her gym bag. She kissed the top of my head on her way out. "I've got that branding meeting at 10, then yoga, love you." I murmured something. Not love, not goodbye, just noise. When the door shut behind her, the silence felt like a scream. I stood there in our kitchen, surrounded by appliances we picked out together, shelves lined with spice jars she never touched, recipe books we used once then left like props. Everything looked fine. That was the worst part. Our life looked fine. I walked into the guest room. It used to be an office, then a makeshift studio when she wanted to try podcasting. Now it was storage space for folded clothes that didn't fit, seasonal candles, a treadmill no one used. I sat on the edge of the guest bed and stared at the wall. It was a dull beige. She'd said she wanted to paint it forest green. She never got around to it. That room was full of unfinished things, just like us. I pulled open a drawer in the desk and found one of her old notebooks. Flipped through Ithalf written thoughts, bullet points for episode ideas, a list titled, "Things I Want to Be," present, grateful, honest. I laughed. It came out sharp and sad, honest. I walked back into our bedroom, stared at the bed we shared. On her side, the pillow was fluffed just right. Her moisturizer on the nightstand, a romance novel half finished. I used to lay next to her and wonder why I felt alone. Now I knew. There's a kind of grief that doesn't come with death. It's the death of certainty. The slow realization that the person you trusted with your future had quietly started building a different one without you. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was the memory of loving her honestly, purely, while she rehearsed a lie. There's no rage in that kind of heartbreak. Not yet. Just emptiness. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, staring out the window. I remembered our first apartment, tiny, drafty, filled with hand-me-downs and hope. We couldn't afford anything fancy, but we laughed more then. We used to dance in the kitchen barefoot. We used to dream in the same direction. At some point, she stopped including me in those dreams. At some point, I stopped noticing. That's the part that haunts you, not just what they did, but what you allowed, what you ignored, what you explained away in the name of love. I laid down on the guest bed and closed my eyes. No tears came, just a heavy stillness, like the room was holding its breath with me. Later that evening, she came home. I heard her laugh on the phone in the hallway, the same laugh from Napa. She peeked her head into the bedroom and smiled. "Hey, everything okay?" I looked at her and said, "Yeah." She nodded, satisfied. And just like that, she went back to her world, and I stayed in mine, quiet, cracked, and finally, awake. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't demand answers. That's not how people like Marissa expect things to unfold. They prepare for explosions, not precision. So I gave her exactly what she wouldn't see coming. Silence. But behind that silence, I began building a plan. My first call was to Cheryl Watts. She came highly recommended by a friend in HR. Divorce attorney. Known for staying 3 steps ahead, her office was sleek, full of dark wood and natural light. She wore black-rimmed glasses and a gray blazer that looked sharper than most knives. "Tell me everything," she said, sliding a legal pad toward me. I didn't hold back. I laid it all out. The photo, the messages, the receipts, the hotel bookings. I even brought the evidence folder, neatly organized and backed up on a drive. She nodded slowly, like she'd seen this film before. "She thinks you don't know?" Cheryl asked. "She doesn't even suspect." Good. That's power. We didn't talk about revenge. We talked about leverage, documentation, timing. Cheryl explained Washington's community property laws, how infidelity could influence settlements if framed with care. I listened, took notes. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel lost. I felt focused. Next, I set up a new bank account, transferred my direct deposit, changed my email passwords, locked down every shared platform we had. She wouldn't notice, not yet, but the cords were slowly being untied. I reviewed every shared purchase from the last year, her yoga retreats, the birthday weekend in Santa Barbara, the new patio set she surprised us with, all on our joint credit. I compiled it all in a spreadsheet labeled reclaimable expenses. Then I contacted a financial advisor I trusted from work. He walked me through the process of freezing the joint account without triggering red flags. We scheduled it for the morning after the filing. I moved out in pieces, a few clothes at a time. Some tools, my laptop, anything that mattered went into a small storage unit I rented under my name. Back at the apartment, I smiled more. Asked how her day was, massaged her shoulders while she texted Logan 10 feet away. She thought I was being sweet again. Really, I was done pretending. I started going to the gym again. Early mornings. Focused. I wasn't training for a glow-up. I just needed to feel my body push against something real, something that couldn't lie to me. I found the notebook where I'd once drafted an idea for a mobile app, something I shelved when Marissa told me it was a distraction from real responsibilities. I opened it again, sketched out a new version, cleaned up the old code, submitted it to a niche startup competition under a pseudonym. I didn't expect to win. I just needed to remind myself I could build something from scratch without her. One night, after she fell asleep on the couch mid-scroll, I opened the laptop again and finalized the divorce petition with Cheryl's office. I attached Exhibit A, added a note, "Please file first thing Wednesday. I'll be gone by then." The next day I cooked breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. Set the table. She blinked at the gesture. "What's the occasion?" "Just felt like doing something nice." She smiled, leaned in for a kiss. I kissed her back. That night, while she was out late at work, I packed the last box. Left my ring on the dresser. Quiet, unceremonious. The apartment felt colder as I locked the door behind me. But I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. Because this wasn't an ending. It was a reset. I drove to the short-term rental I'd signed for. It was modest, quiet, 1 bedroom, no shared closet, no curated gallery wall, just blank space. And it felt good, clean, real. I poured myself a glass of the scotch I'd been saving, Saturday on the porch, and watched the sun go down, not as a man who'd been left behind, but as a man finally walking away. The filing went through on a Wednesday. No fanfare, no announcement, just a line in a docket and an envelope delivered to her office, stamped with quiet finality. That evening, my phone buzzed nonstop missed calls, voicemails, unread texts. I didn't answer any of them. The next morning, I got a call from Cheryl. Logan's firm just reached out. Their legal team wants clarification on whether he's being named directly. I raised an eyebrow. "Did we?" "Not by name," she said, almost smiling. "But Exhibit A has timestamps, receipts, and hotel camera footage. They know exactly who they are." Within a week, Logan wiped his social media, deleted Instagram, made his LinkedIn private. Rumor had it he took an indefinite leave from the boutique branding agency he co-founded in San Diego. I didn't need to gloat, that wasn't the point. But it felt good to know the man who stepped into my marriage like it was a vacation rental wasn't walking away without a bill. Marissa, meanwhile, launched into damage control. She started with the concerned friends. I got texts from people I hadn't heard from in months. "Hey man, Marissa said you're going through something, just checking in. She mentioned you've been distant. Hope you're okay." One even wrote, "She says she still loves you, she's just confused." Right. Confused people don't book hotel suites with men named Logan and delete their texts before bed. They don't pose for photos while their husband is asked to step out of frame. Confused isn't the word. Calculated is. I didn't respond to any of it. Didn't post a status. Didn't rant online. Didn't engage in the battle she tried to provoke. Instead, I posted one photo. A simple shot of me unpacking a box in my new rental, next to a caption that read, "Sometimes the best comeback is silence," paired with receipts, 3,000 likes, over 100 private messages, half of them from people I barely remembered, saying some version of, "I always wondered how you put up with her. You were too good for that mess. Glad you got out." But the real twist came at Haley's birthday brunch 2 weeks later. Yes, the same Haley whose engagement party had started this whole unraveling. She'd invited me personally, said it wouldn't feel right without me. I showed up early, brought a handmade charcuterie board I'd stained, and assembled myself. Something I never would have done a year ago. Something that now felt entirely, beautifully mine. People greeted me warmly. No pity, no side eyes. Just, welcome. Marissa arrived late, of course. She wore sunglasses, even indoors. A thin smile on her lips like a thread holding her together. She walked in, paused when she saw me, then kept moving. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Later, as we all stood around singing happy birthday, I noticed the photo table near the bar. It was filled with framed snapshots Haley through the years. Family gatherings, last summer's lake trip. One photo caught my eye. It was from the engagement party, but not the original. They'd taken a new photo that day weeks after the fallout tone with the real family, the ones who stayed true, the ones who didn't need retakes. I wasn't in it, neither was Marissa. It was just Haley, her fiancé, and the people who hadn't played a role in hurting each other. I stood there for a moment, taking it in. And I didn't feel erased. I felt free. That night, I got a message from Haley. "Thank you for showing up. You didn't have to, but it meant a lot. You always showed up, even when others didn't." I didn't cry, but I sat still for a long time, because sometimes healing doesn't come with a scream or a slam. Sometimes it comes in the form of a quiet table, a chair where you're wanted, and the realization that you're finally in a room where you're no longer invisible. A year passed. The ink on the divorce was dry. The apartment was someone else's now. The memories, too. I lived in a modest townhome just outside Ballard Quiet neighborhood. Good coffee within walking distance, enough space for a workbench in the garage and morning light in the kitchen. I built things now. Shelves, a bird feeder, even a bench for the park up the street. I liked working with my hands turning raw wood into something solid, predictable, honest. One Saturday, a thick envelope showed up in my mailbox. It was an invitation, Haley's baby shower, gold embossed letters, soft white cardstock, no drama, no agenda, just, "We'd love to see you there." I sat with it for a long time, not because I was unsure, but because something inside me recognized the full circle. I went, not for closure, not for her, but because I wanted to, because I didn't feel like hiding anymore. The backyard was filled with fairy lights and soft laughter, lawn chairs, lemonade, homemade cupcakes that probably took 3 tries to get right. It wasn't curated, it was real. When I walked in, a few heads turned but not in judgment. Just recognition. Haley smiled wide and came to hug me. "I'm glad you came," she whispered. "Me too," I said. And I meant it. Across the yard I saw Marissa. Hair longer, no heavy makeup, a dress that hung a little looser than she probably intended. She saw me, froze. I gave a small nod, nothing more. She didn't walk over. She didn't speak, because she understood now. She was no longer the center, and I was no longer in orbit. As the party wound down, I passed by the gift table. Framed photos, old sonograms, Polaroids from that day, and there, tucked in the corner, was a new picture from Haley's engagement redo. This time, I wasn't asked to step aside, but I also wasn't in it, because that family photo didn't need me or her. It belonged to people who stayed honest, who showed up for each other. I smiled, not bitterly, not sadly, just truthfully, because I wasn't erased. I had simply stepped out of the wrong story and started writing my own.